Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Leadership Lanes. Today we have Margarita with us. She's a senior product manager at Amazon. Margarita leads the core shopping experience at ShopBop, Amazon's luxury e-commerce subsidiary. She's at the heart of the fusion between high fashion and cutting-edge tech. Her portfolio includes the development and launch of Colombia's first digital pension fund at TYPA, innovating a buy now, pay later platform for medical devices, and significantly improving product discovery at Amazon. These are just a few examples of her contributions to enhance customer experiences. Margarita's expertise spans a variety of industries from fintech and food tech to e-commerce, showcasing a versatile skill sets. More than just a strategist, Margarita is a born entrepreneur. She has successfully founded two startups, leading one to a successful exit. We would like to hear about that as well, by the way. Always emphasizing on the importance of exceptional data-driven customer experiences. Her approach blends strategic vision with a deep understanding of customer needs, setting new benchmarks in every sector she touches. Today, we'll be discussing intersection of technology in the fashion, beauty, and health sectors. Welcome to the episode, Margarita.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Super excited to be here.
Absolutely. Before getting into the intersection of tech, fashion, beauty, and health, there's something interesting that caught my eye was that you had founded two startups and one was a successful exit. Do you want to talk about that first before we delve into the actual meat of the content?
Yes, definitely. So I did found two startups, both in the food sector. The first startup, which was the one I was able to exit from, focuses on catering for airlines. And it was a service that actually evolved over time. It started as a B2C, where we provided products, especially on the pastry side for customers. And then we started to realize there was a big gap in the market, especially for airlines who, like they have lots of travels every single day, and the food quality is not necessarily the best. And when you think about premium part of like the airlines, so like business class, there wasn't a lot of opportunity there for innovation. So we decided to focus on that niche market and to develop products that actually cater to that specific sector.
That's fascinating and very relatable. Airline food needs to be innovated for sure. One exciting aspect, and this is something typically that we, at least the part of the world that I come from, getting into the food businesses from a regulatory and a compliance point of view is not as easy as something like a tech business, for example. What was your experience from a compliance and a regulatory perspective of running a food startup?
That is actually a very, very interesting question because how you serve food actually changes the regulations that you have to consider. So when we initially started with our B2C, because we were directly distributing to customers, obviously there's the regular food protection and kind of making sure that there's no cross contamination, that everything is sanitized properly, but there's no necessary regulation behind it. As we move to B2B, where you have packaging and you have distribution, that's where it starts to become a little bit more complicated. And that's where a lot of that FDA, which in Colombia, it's not FDA, but it's very similar, kicks in. Because when you add a product into a package, there's a lot of potential of incubation of bacteria or viruses or many other cross contaminants that you want to make sure those are limited. So the process is a very rigorous one because it's not necessarily only around the packaging. It's also making sure that your food production center is compliant and that you have, for example, in our case, the HACCP registration, and then like all of these other different steps throughout the process. Distribution also requires its own set of regulations with, temperature control and making sure that you have all of those things in place.
And that's one of the factors I believe makes the food business, especially startups, tricky to operate in because there are a lot of overheads, I feel.
Definitely a lot of overhead expense, a lot of planning, and especially when you're starting off in the food sector, there's two possibilities, right? You distribute directly to supermarkets, which is a high volume business, and it's not necessarily upfront. So investment tends to be really, really, really limited. And then you have the other part, which is you distribute directly to customers, but then how you distribute to that customer also has a lot of regulations of whether you need to invest in research for packaging, for logistics, for like all those other little steps that do add friction for entrepreneurs in this particular space.
That makes sense, and that comes to probably the meat of the discussion here. Is what are your thoughts on technology, and how will technology help in all these aspects that you discussed, along with the core of the discussion, which being food, fashion, health, beauty.
Definitely.
Before you start, and I believe for beauty products as well, and I'd worked with ELC for a few months, and from what I heard is for some of the beauty products as well, you need FDA approval. Is that true?
100%. I think
Got
all of those industries intersect in so many possible ways. They do have at its core a lot of like regulations and a lot of things that overlap, whether that is the food industry, the healthcare industry, or in general, the fashion and beauty industry. So I do believe technology has such a magnificent opportunity here. And it has become, in general, the heartbeat. It's like a backstage designer that is constantly innovating and I guess like pushing a lot of boundaries. And I think going back to your question around the role of technology in fashion, beauty, and the healthcare sector, I do think that it is clear that it has become such a transformative force, not only revolutionizing these industries from the obvious, like nowadays how we shop is very different. There's integration of AR, of PR, but it has also created such a understanding at a consumer preference that it is no longer a product that is for the masses. It is something that is generally catered at such an individual level, which offers a lot of personalization during the shopping experience. And I think it definitely transcends from the general aspect of recommendations within products. It is about, as we mentioned a little earlier, creating those unique journeys for each customer. And today I work at ShopUp, which, as you mentioned a little earlier, is the luxury e-commerce arm from Amazon. And we use a lot of these technologies to actually tailor shopping experiences to make it more intuitive and like user-centric. And I think it goes beyond the e-commerce. When we think about beauty and how today products are developed, there's the possibility to do virtual try-ons, and it alters completely how customers select products. In health, the wearable technologies and the health tracking apps have brought about a new era of personalized healthcare, just bringing a lot of that power to customers' hands and helping them take charge of their own well-being. So, yeah, I think it definitely extends from tackling those broader sectors. And these are industries that are super fast paced, where there's a lot of still gaps that we need to respond to. And I think that's where technology actually becomes a really powerful tool, helping us understand how we can drive more sustainability, ethical production, supply chain transparency. It can serve as an enabler and democratize a lot of like this sector, which is very, very much still very dominated by a few, breaking down geographical and social economic barriers. It has the possibility of bringing inclusivity for the sectors and being mindful of those societal and ethical implications, especially when we think about technology. Whatever sector we're thinking about, there's a lot of data that we're constantly capturing. So making sure that we're able to particularly drive that data in a responsible way becomes such a integral part of everyone's role. So yeah, I believe that it's definitely a powerful tool for personalization, efficiency, and driving global challenges.
Yeah, actually, that was a very vast answer. A couple of follow-ups on that, on what you answered, right? To start with AR, VR. Now, with the advent of AR, VR, and we have seen, right? I mean, there is a constant debate of e-commerce in fashion versus e-commerce in store versus fashion in store. And with the emergence of technological trends like AR, VR, etc., how do you feel that the e-commerce version of fashion experience is catching up with the in-store experience, and you feel same applies for beauty as well?
100%. And that is a great question. I think AR and VR are still kind of getting improved, but I do think they have the ability to get improved at such faster pace than before. So I'm not even doubting the fact that, in the next 4 or 5 months, we're able to fully see an evolution in this technology adoption. And I think a lot of the, like customers are becoming more and more versatile in like how they shop. There's no one outlet anymore. You're not just buying from an e-commerce, you're not just buying from a store, but the necessities still remain the same, whether you're buying online or in person. You still want to buy pieces that do match your style, that fit your size, your, in the beauty industry, your skin color. Those are things that are still necessary. And I think these tools are enabler. And they're definitely going to improve those. I do think there's a gap in the market still, especially relating sizes. Every single brand has their own size. They have their own way of like cutting the different products. And as you change styles, for example, like if you think about pair of pants, some of them are loose, some of them are skinny. So like all of this different nuances do make it really hard for technology at this point to improve those shopping experiences. So I think that's where the biggest opportunity is, reducing those returns based on unmatched style or color or size.
I'm pretty sure with the pace that technology is advancing, that problem will also be solved pretty quickly.
Yes. And if you think about like even proxy products, like nowadays with healthcare trackers, there's a lot of body scanning tools that probably will be, inherently adopted by the fashion industry, the beauty industry. So I think those proxy industries will definitely help inform and drive this innovation even faster.
That's true. That's true. Actually, coming to your last point, which was data, I believe data is the key here to drive this innovation for sure.
I can't agree more with that statement.
Coming on to the next, after COVID, do you see the emergence of health tracking apps like gaining a lot of momentum, especially after COVID? At least I saw during COVID, I saw a lot of these startups, not necessarily just smartwatches, but wristbands, armbands, neck, spinal cord bands, getting a lot of traction, momentum, as well as a lot of seed funding. Do you see a pattern that will be evolving even further beyond COVID?
Yes, 100%. I do think that, of course, the wake of COVID, there was unprecedented surge. Especially, I think there were really, really accurate tools in measuring temperature and heartbeat that could tell you that you were going to get COVID before you even got COVID. So I think those are just small examples of the potential of these tools. And these tools were actually just very niche market, but I think they become just staple in our daily lives. Even if you're not genuinely tracking, your devices already track this information. Like if you're not wearing an Apple Watch or like a tracking band, your phone is tracking your steps and your computer is tracking your view time. So there's a lot of tracking that is going on. And I think that is generally just going to evolve. I see that there's a trajectory for sure that is gonna continue to steadily increase, but also evolve. It's definitely gonna become more sophisticated. And I think with the pandemic, it just shifted our focus towards health consciousness. We were very much driven by going to the doctor's office and being able to get monitored. But like now with these tools, we have a lot of that power in our own hands. And going back to that idea of like how AI and machine learning are definitely going to change this, they're making our apps much smarter because they're not only tracking, but they're also creating patterns and learning around our behaviors. And they're adapting to our own unique health environments and providing personalized recommendation. They're shifting from trackers into personal health coaches. And when you couple this with different products or technologies, for example, like telemedicine and virtual healthcare, you just have a big potential there where the health tracking apps become a crucial link between, the patients and the healthcare providers that offer that real-time data that you can't really offer to your health providers. So do I see this growth stabilizing? I would say not necessarily in the near future. I think it's just going to continue to grow, and not only in numbers, but also in capabilities. And it's just going to become an indispensable tool in our journey. So it's not only exciting, it's also kind of reassuring knowing that we can have the power of technology to also lead healthier lifestyles.
That's absolutely true. And coming to your point about data, and as a product manager, the data that we can track today with the AI and the ML models that are built, it's kind of a gold mine for a PM to think, to be honest. I mean, it's boundless, like limitless. So in your opinion, and that's where as a good PM or as a responsible PM, where do you feel a product manager has to draw a line as to from a data security perspective, or a data security concern perspective?
That is actually a great question because with data comes a lot of responsibility. And I think for product managers, we've always been used to think about data kind of like an informing force. And if you think about our role in general, we are driven to make decisions, but by data, by nature. But I do think that we should be changing how we build products and make sure that the first step for all digital products is to build with privacy and security as kind of like the DNA of our applications or digital products. And it is becoming more, I would say, involving this mindset early on before becoming more reactive. So adopting a privacy by design approach first, where it becomes a foundational feature versus an afterthought. And where you draw the line, I think that is a very tough question because with a lot of the data that you're capturing, you want to make sure that the customer is getting the best value, but you also want to make sure it's being anonymized in a way that it can't be tracked to a specific customer. So just being very transparent with your customer on what kind of data you're going to be capturing, how you're going to be using it, and who are you going to be sharing it with, because this is another part of data capturing. A lot of companies share data, and that deters the own right of, like your customers. So just making sure you're sharing those and providing security audits and compliances with data protection like GDPR and HIPAA. I think those are all key. And I also feel like, of course, as a product manager, it's my responsibility to make sure the customer is always safe. But I also feel there's a big responsibility on the users to also be aware and proactive and understand what they're signing up for and how they're providing their data and making sure that they feel comfortable with that.
That's a great answer. Coming to my last question, and for entrepreneurs and you've been an entrepreneur yourself in the past. So, for entrepreneurs who aren't tech savvy, but want to incorporate technology into business, and with the advent of ChatGPT, these AI LLM models, what advice would you give them, and where they should start? Because I've been hearing with the kind of models that are built these days, you typically need not be a complete tech person in order to even leverage or start using these models.
I agree 100%. I think technology today has become more accessible and equalizer than ever before. So, and I only suspect this is going to become truer and truer. Um, I do think that it is powerful for people who are not necessarily tech experts to still be able to be ahead of the curve. Like, there's a lot of things within technology, and understanding the basic concepts of technology is such an important, regardless of which industry you're in, like how you build a website, how like softwares actually integrate with one another. I don't think you have to be an expert or build yourself any of these tools, but you really need to understand how they work so that you can make more informed decisions. And as you mentioned, AI is an enabler, but there's also a lot of tools out there like online courses. There's a lot of webinars. There's a lot of resources that are particularly tailored for entrepreneurs who do not have a tech background. And I would also focus on building a team or finding partners that complement your skills. You don't have to be a person who knows absolutely everything, but you need to have the ability to bring people who can complement. And those could be, for example, the tech savvy individuals or associate with other companies or third-party providers who can provide guidance and help you build a strong structure. And I would also say start small. A lot of entrepreneurs are urged to implement the latest technology and ensure that every single one of their processes involves technology. And I don't necessarily think that's the right approach, especially when you don't have this kind of background. Implement technology in stages rather than overhauling your entire operation at once. And this could mean automating one process at a time, or adopting one tech tool, or moving to more complex systems. Like, there's a lot of things. And finally, I would say listen to your customers. They're generally the source of your feedback and how the technology can be improved, or your products or your services. Don't start with technology as like your end goal. Use technology to enable those processes. And the next, like you will end up figuring out how to make things work.
That was a very interesting discussion, Margarita. I guess we'll have to stop here. It was great talking to you, very insightful, and thanks for being the guest here today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure for me as well.